I mean, it was so fun to be introduced to Elena's scripts and see that she'd gone through this complete transformation. And with TV, normally you create a character in the first season and then you build on them in the following seasons. But I mean, this was just so not what I was expecting when I signed on to a TV show, and that Sue really does just completely transform into another person. And I think Sue's relationship to being an infamous hostess socialite is more complicated than she would have people, including herself, think it is. I think it really is about escaping from anything that makes her think or feel too deeply, including Emily, and throwing these elaborate parties and wearing these extraordinary dresses is all about kind of packing down the trauma of her past and the trauma that she's still processing by distraction. But it was also really fun looking at the history of female socialites from the 1700s in Paris to Kim Kardashian today, and looking at women in positions where their only way of having any kind of intellectual stimulation or power is through throwing elaborate parties. And certainly in 1850, a woman like Sue in an unhappy marriage, her only option, it's not like she can get a job, her only option is, if she wants that kind of energy in her life to become this person and to transform into someone that I don't think she naturally is.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and it's important, just real quick, but it's important to note that, in truth, Sue did transform after her marriage to Austin, and that Sue did become this. So, she transformed the Evergreens into this social hub of New England. And that's important to recognize because, Sue must have been a pretty brilliant woman herself, or else why would Emily Dickinson have cared what Sue thought of her poems? And I guarantee that she cared more what Sue thought than anybody else. The only instance that we have of Emily taking a note and changing something is because Sue gave her feedback on a poem. So these are both very strong women. Yeah, it was this poem called Safe in Their Alabaster Chambers.
And do you know what she changed? I'm curious about this. I don't know.
Yeah, apparently Sue told her to cut a stanza. Sue said that the second stanza didn't live up to the first. And, so that's pretty intense. Yeah.
I've certainly felt, and Elena and I had some conversations about this at the beginning of shooting this season, but how empowering the show has been for me personally in my development as a 22-year-old girl. And when I got the show, I was 20. In
19. You were 19. 22. You were 19, Ella.
Was I 19?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the show has been the show has been a huge part of my personal development, and actually has really empowered me not to be afraid of my own queerdom and my own sexuality. And it's one of the awesome things about living in this time that we live in, is that we don't, as women, have to pretend that we don't have a sex drive. And that is a huge part of our show, and certainly the tension between Emily and Sue. And it is unspoken, but so tacit and beautiful. And I love playing it.
I do think it's one of the most beautiful parts of this whole show is the relationship between Emily and Sue. And like you mentioned before, it's oftentimes sort of either mentioned, or you get sort of a little look into what a relationship could be or might be, but this is everything it can be. And we love to take it as far as we can. And I, as an actor, love that I can play through such a beautiful relationship that's unlike anything I've ever played on screen. And you know, from what we know of Emily's life, she had a relationship with Sue Gilbert, and she was her best friend and her confidant and her sister-in-law. But that, you know, at the end of the day, this was somebody that understood somebody so unbelievably misunderstood by the people in her own home. And this was someone that loved her for who she was and was able to accept her for all her weirdness, and crazy, chaotic, emotionalness, all of it. She accepted her and loved her for who she was. And it's a really beautiful relationship that even through season 2, where they couldn't mentally and physically and even emotionally be further from each other, they still remain, that love between them still remains. And I believe that they are who they're meant to be when they are together.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.